Hi guys, it's Kirsty. Happy 2022 to all of you. I hope you're all well and doing good. This video is going to be about procrastination. So I want to give a definition of procrastination, give some examples of what procrastination might look like, talk about why it's not helpful, talk about how it can feed into our OCD. And then I want to kind of offer some tips from my own experience in terms of pushing through procrastination and how this can be helpful for you on your OCD recovery journey. But before I go into that, I would like to ask, please do subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below in order to stay up to date with new videos as they're released. Please do also click on the like button below if this video is helpful for you, if you enjoyed the video, and also feel free to comment below as well if there's anything that you'd like us to cover in any other videos, or if you want to see a particular topic that was spoken about in other videos covered in more detail, and then we will see what we can do, and we'll do our very best to help and to cover a video on those topics. So moving on to procrastination, not to procrastinate any further. So I've got a definition of the word procrastination here from my mate Google. So here it says it's the action of delaying or postponing something. So also, you know, we want to look at why procrastination isn't particularly helpful. So essentially, procrastination could be choosing, doing something when we should be, or when we would ideally be doing something else that might help us towards achieving our goals. So if we're not doing that thing that will help us achieve our goals, then it kind of pushes us further away from getting to where we want to be. So some examples of what procrastination may look like. So firstly, I would like to give my own example here of procrastination that I almost started to do. So I actually started to film this video several times and kept on saying the wrong thing and starting again. And then I started to get frustrated, and then I was thinking, do you know what? Maybe I'll just go and do some clearing up downstairs instead, or something like that. And although clearing up downstairs is not a particularly unhelpful action, it's not what I had planned to do with this time, and I had specifically wanted to record this video. So I was very tempted to procrastinate then. My reason for doing so is because I was starting to feel frustrated and thinking, actually, the more frustrated I was feeling by saying the wrong thing, the more I was thinking, well, I might just keep doing it and then waste time. And so I could very easily have talked myself out of progressing. So other examples I can give. So say if we have homework that we want to be doing or would be helpful for us to do in order to help us to get good grades on something that we're working on at college or university, school, whatever. But instead of doing that homework, we watch Netflix instead. Or for example, if we are thinking about, it's on your mind, I want to eat more healthily this year, so I need to have a look at some healthy recipes and do a grocery shop for this. But instead you find yourself, instead of Googling or searching for good recipes and doing your grocery shop online, whatever, or going out, you find yourself doing, looking at something else online on the Daily Mail website, for example, instead. Or perhaps it might be your New Year's resolution is that you want to dedicate more time to your physical fitness. So you plan to do some workouts and you keep thinking, oh yeah, I'll do that workout. But instead you find yourself playing around on Instagram or looking at TikTok videos instead. And then before you know it, half an hour's gone. So those are some examples of procrastination. It could be just basically doing anything else to postpone doing the thing that you want to do to achieve your goals. Now, quite often the reason that we find ourselves procrastinating is because we are avoiding the discomfort of exerting ourselves, whether that's physically or mentally. So, for example, with physical exercise, we might be, sitting around watching Netflix or spending ages picking our workout outfit or something, wasting time essentially rather than just getting on with our workout, because we actually we say we haven't worked out for a while, we actually are delaying having to feel the discomfort of the physical exertion of exercise, which we need, quite often, depending on the exercise that we're doing. Generally, in order to progress, there will be some exertion. Even if it's a gentle workout like yoga, there's a degree of concentration there in terms of, mind, muscle, movement, etc. So there is some exertion in some way. And that can feel uncomfortable. So essentially, it's kind of delaying that feeling of discomfort. And then there's other things as well. So it might be, maybe it's going outside to run errands that you need to do. But you're delaying that by watching TV or something. And it might be that the discomfort that you're avoiding is the discomfort of being cold, being outside. Or, if we're going to make it OCD related specifically, it might be that there's triggers outside and you don't want the discomfort of being exposed to your triggers. But I'll go into that a little bit more later on in the video in terms of the relation to OCD. But I just want to throw out some examples. And if it's about homework, it might be that you don't, it's delaying the discomfort of having to focus or do something that's mentally challenging. And maybe when you're doing your homework or these jobs or exercise, you get uncomfortable while you're doing it or you get frustrated. So it's also maybe avoiding the discomfort of those feelings of frustration that things might conjure up if it's challenging for us. And so instead we find ourselves focusing on an easier topic. So from what I understand, reading about this kind of thing, our minds are wired to seek pleasure over pain. And in doing so, they tend to associate kind of comfort with safety. So the comfort of the familiar, of scrolling around on Instagram or watching Netflix, over the challenge of doing a workout or doing your homework or whatever or perhaps it's signing up to an online dating profile or anything like that. It might be avoiding the discomfort of the unknown, of trying something new. Or, as I said, there's this sort of feeling of frustration or, whatever thoughts or sensations that may conjure up. These procrastination actions are to avoid feeling those things. And then sometimes, if we continue to procrastinate, we kind of get into a bit of a habit of doing so. And then after a while, it can make things seem a lot more difficult than they are, because we're sticking in sort of in the comfortable area, and it kind of builds up this thing that we're essentially avoiding doing to be a lot worse and a lot more difficult than it actually is. When, let's face it, you tend not to feel bad after you've done a workout. You tend to feel good about yourself and pleased with yourself and satisfied. And exercise is known to release endorphins, which, would make us feel good. So we're delaying, we're kind of almost convincing ourselves that the workout's going to be awful or whatever. And we're feeding into that idea by continuing to delay it, continuing to avoid doing it, when actually if we do the workout, we'd actually potentially even enjoy it and feel very satisfied afterwards. The same with doing homework or whatever studying it might be. It's what when we're procrastinating and avoiding it and sort of building up in our minds, it's going to be too hard, I can't do it, it's too difficult, so I'm going to do this instead. When in actual fact, we might find that mental challenge incredibly satisfying. If you're an OCD sufferer or anxiety sufferer, the using your brain in that time might actually give you some time to actually use your thinking for something more productive rather than ruminating about various obsessions. Or if it's delaying setting up an online dating profile because, procrastinating instead of setting that up by, watching Netflix instead, when in actual fact, it might lead you to meeting some really, really amazing, fun people, and it might build your confidence. And although it could be nerve-wracking to go out and meet new people, it's not going to be as awful as you might be making it out to be, which might be the reason why you're avoiding doing so. So, you know, the more we procrastinate, the more we kind of feed into the idea that these things that we would ideally like to be doing are too difficult for us, when in actual fact, they're not too difficult. Some of them might be difficult, but they're not too difficult. And sometimes just doing it and showing yourself that you can do it can then lead to kind of maybe feeling more like you want to do it the next time. It's this whole idea of motivation as well, not waiting for that feeling of motivation to come to you. Instead, just get on and do it. So the way that this can relate to our OCD is, again, it kind of relates to not wanting to feel uncomfortable. So we talk about in a lot of the videos on the OCD Recovery YouTube channel, that a part of OCD recovery is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So by that, we mean bringing, you know, the anxiety feelings along with you as you go about your day rather than avoiding things. Or if you have the urge to do a compulsion, instead don't do the compulsion and allow that urge to just be there and those uncomfortable feelings to be there without trying to work out what it means. And the same can be applied here with choosing to not procrastinate and to do the things that we would ideally like to be doing that will help us to get closer to our goals. So essentially, the more we can practice not procrastinating and feeling the discomfort of, you know, pushing ourselves essentially to do the things that we would like to do to achieve our goals, the more we're showing our brain that we're willing to feel discomfort, we're willing to feel feelings of frustration if our homework is quite difficult, or we're willing to feel some discomfort physically when we're trying a workout for the first time. I will add there, when I'm talking about feeling some discomfort, I mean maybe you're getting out of breath or something like that. I don't mean that you're actually hurting yourself, just to be very clear. Or, you know, or like the other example I gave, you know, we choose to sit with the discomfort of accepting the uncertainty of online dating and sit with the discomfort of not knowing if we're going to be rejected or feel awkward or something like that. Because the more we do that, the more we're telling our minds that we don't care if we're going to be a bit uncomfortable. We're going to do what we want to do to achieve our goals. And the more you're doing that, the more you're kind of challenging your beliefs and your mind to be more flexible, which is so incredibly helpful for OCD recovery. Because OCD recovery is a very gradual process made up of lots of different changes in behaviors and working on beliefs, each of them chipping away day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute even. So even if it's a case of starting, like identifying the things that you're doing to procrastinate, even if it seems like it's not remotely related to your OCD, actually you're still challenging yourself. And every time you're challenging yourself, you're also kind of teaching your brain to be a bit more flexible, and not to just stick in the comfort zone at all times. So I also wanted to just mention that we may find ourselves procrastinating, finding things to do instead of working on our OCD recovery. So it might be that we are procrastinating with various things rather than doing the exposures that we've agreed with the person that we might be working on our recovery with, or any sort of exposure you've planned for yourself. You may even find yourself delaying that exposure and procrastinating by trying to find the perfect exposure. It's almost like the act of trying to get something perfect is a procrastination in itself, because it's kind of avoiding the discomfort of doing the thing that you want to do. But also in relation to in this example with doing an exposure for somebody who has OCD, it's avoiding the uncertainty of how helpful this exposure may be, or it's avoiding feeling the uncertainty of the exposure not being done with 100% perfection. So, some people may find themselves, referring to themselves as perfectionists, and they might find that actually that's not always it's not particularly helpful for them, because they might find themselves delaying doing things because they're spending so much time trying to get it right, because they're terrified of doing it wrong and making a mistake and the consequences there. So, to stop the procrastination and just doing that is sending various messages to your mind. It's that you're accepting the uncertainty that's not being perfect. You're accepting the potential of making a mistake. And also you're accepting the fact that it's going to feel uncomfortable. You may find the same when you're, perhaps you're avoiding doing the cognitive work for OCD recovery. So whether you're doing cognitive restructuring, whatever form that may be, on this channel, we talk about challenging irrational beliefs. So you may find yourself delaying, procrastinating over, delaying disputing the irrational beliefs by procrastinating over trying to get the perfect irrational belief, find out exactly what that is, So it might be that you're procrastinating with various other things, and it might just be scrolling around Instagram, or it might be procrastinating, trying desperately to find out what the irrational belief is in order to avoid actually the disputing process, which you're avoiding doing that because it's frustrating and it takes time and it takes patience, and that's really annoying sometimes. And in the meantime, you're suffering from OCD still. So this procrastination may come in when you're working, affect how you're working on your OCD recovery as well. So the less we're procrastinating, the better. And it might be a part of procrastination is the fearing of making a mistake or uncertainty or anything like that. So, all part of OCD recovery is feeling like we're accepting uncertainty of taking various risks. So it can be extremely interrelated. So to summarize, in this video, I've discussed procrastination with a definition from Google and given some examples of what procrastination may look like, mostly focusing on the idea of maybe exercising, doing homework, or setting up an online dating profile. I picked those three things because I felt like, one of them is accepting uncertainty and exposing yourself to, potential discomfort of maybe being rejected with the online dating profile. The homework thing is kind of the challenging, might feel frustrated mentally, and the exercise is the kind of physical aspect of it. But there is obviously hundreds of other examples of how we might procrastinate. And I also wanted to obviously mention examples of how we might procrastinate with our OCD recovery as well. And hopefully I've talked about how by reducing procrastination in our day-to-day lives, it can contribute towards our OCD recovery as well. So I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I very much appreciate your watching. Take care. Bye.